Honey mushroom. I love honey mushroom for a variety of reasons, especially with working with the neurological disorders and neurological concerns. It's not one that gets talked about a whole lot, but it has a really interesting relationship and tie-in with Chinese herbal medicine, and we'll find out why in just a second. So, Armillaria, honey mushroom, also known as honey agaric or honey cap, as far as its key actions. It does have a sedative effect on the central nervous system or on the nervous system, antibacterial properties, anticonvulsant properties, anti-aging, increases cardiac muscle flow, increases resistance to hypoxia. So that means that hypoxia is a state where you're not getting enough oxygen. So it's increasing the body's capacity to receive oxygen. So increasing oxygen intake in the body, which has there's a wide range of benefits on its own. So, beneficial effects of honey mushroom, anti-aging, anti-spasticity, anti-vertigo, and has been shown to relieve neuropathic numbness and pain. This is where I use honey mushroom quite a bit, and also an area where honey mushroom is unique in addressing. So when it comes to vertigo, spasticity, and central neuropathic numbness or pain, so unexplained or idiopathic numbness or pain, um, can be really, really helpful in situations of dizziness, vertigo, and we integrate it into treatments of things like dysautonomia, where the autonomic nervous system becomes very dysregulated, and that can lead to a lot of vestibular symptoms like dizziness and vertigo. So, some of the potential uses of honey mushroom include headaches, vascular headaches, the dizziness. Meniere's disease is a condition that involves a lot of dizziness, dizzy spells and vertigo, tinnitus again, so the ringing in the ears, and a lot of that, all of that ties into the vestibular system. So honey mushroom really has an affinity for the vestibular system and regulating the autonomic nervous system more so than some of the other mushrooms that we're going to talk about. Hypertension, epilepsy and pediatric convulsions, and well, we won't get into it right now, but it has been shown to have that an anticonvulsant effect. So also situations where there's tonic-clonic spasticity, so where the muscles become very spastic. Um, and office, I don't even know if I can pronounce it, stenosis. It's a situation where there's a tonicity in the body, and the body arches itself back and becomes very rigid and arches itself back. So it's very strong spasticity within the body. Pain or numbness in the low back and the extremities, nerve pain and neuropathy, numbness in the extremities, craniocerebral injury, so things like traumatic brain injury, post-concussion, cervical spondylosis, cerebrovascular disease, hypertension, basilar ischemia, so where there's not enough blood flow happening, what's been referred to as vegetative nervous function disturbance. Another way, this is very closely related to dysautonomia, um, insomnia, and then post-stroke syndrome. So, in terms of some of the research, honey mushrooms has been shown to increase cerebral blood flow. So, it's increasing the amount of blood that's getting to the brain, perfusing the brain with more blood, decreasing heart rate and vascular resistance. It's been shown to be neuroprotective in a number of different ways. So, it's been found to be 1,000 times stronger than adenosine in protecting the brain. It's shown to reduce apoptosis rate. So if cellular death is after an injury is there's too many cells dying. There's tissue death and an inflammatory process that can sometimes happen. This whole inflammatory process or inflammatory cycle that perpetuates cell death. That could have to happen after injury. It's problematic. You've got tissue dying off that shouldn't. So it's been shown to help reduce that or regulate that, reduce amyloid beta deposition, which is related to Alzheimer's disease, and reduce oxidative damage. It's also been shown to reduce tau aggregations in the hippocampus. Hippocampus, again, memory centers of the brain. Tau aggregations also having a relationship to Alzheimer's disease. So they did take a look at AD right here is Alzheimer's disease. Did a mouse study with Alzheimer's disease and shown that there was improved function when given honey mushroom over a period of 4 weeks. Research has backed up the sedative and anticonvulsant activities of honey mushroom. Neurasthenia or nervous fatigue or neurofatigue. It helps increase that oxygenation in the body, which helps increase ATP production. So the body physically has more energy to do what it needs to do and to heal. They've taken a look at memory, cognition, function, and learning, where it significantly improved learning and memory in mice. They have taken a look at it in relation to insomnia and helping with both REM and non-REM sleep. Been shown to be helpful in stress management and alleviate depression-like behaviors, both in acute and chronic depression symptoms. And then in relation to vertigo, they did a liquid extract as a tablet. One of the studies, they had 45 patients with dizziness, tinnitus, and numbness of the lips and insomnia. So that relationship points itself to some dysregulation in the vestibular system and arguably the entire autonomic nervous system if it's impacting sleep. And they found a symptomatic curative rate of 60 to 82% for a variety of those symptoms that people were experiencing. I've had really great success using honey mushroom, usually in conjunction with other interventions to be helpful with dizziness, vertigo type situations. So it's one where if there's dysautonomia or vertigo, I'll give great consideration to, of course, depending on where somebody is at. But have had really great results with that at times. And then vascular nervous headaches, there's a study that looked at 52 patients and had an effectiveness rate of 81%, which is quite good for vascular nervous headaches, which can sometimes be very difficult to treat. If you're interested at all in how the mechanisms and what honey mushroom is doing, I do have the diagram there, but we're not going to go into it too much. The mitochondrial function is really important when it comes to the neurofatigue and just having the energy capacity for your body to do what it needs to do to heal itself. This is a really unique quality of honey mushroom that ties into traditional Chinese herbal medicine. In Chinese herbal medicine, there's an orchid root or orchid tuber that's used called Gastrodia, and it's used for a variety of things, including a lot of what we've just listed in relationship to honey mushroom, especially around dizziness, vertigo, vestibular type disorders. And part of the reason that there's a lot of overlap is that in nature, these two things have a very symbiotic relationship. They're actually reliant on one another. Or Gastrodia, the orchid, is reliant on honey mushroom in order to thrive and to survive. And so Gastrodia, or what in Chinese medicine is referred to as Tian Ma, which can be hard to cultivate, uh, can be rather expensive because of the difficulty in cultivation, and is also an endangered species. So many practitioners, while companies will still make it available, don't use Tian Ma anymore because of its endangered nature and the expense. But in the interest of conservation, Gastrodia has two rather unusual requirements in order to grow and survive. One is a relationship with a fungus to which it's to sprout its seeds. So it has a relationship with mycenia in order to sprout. And then it has a relationship with honey mushroom, the Amaryllia, or the mycelium of the Amaryllia, becomes incorporated into the tuber itself, into the bulb of the orchid to maintain maturation and growth. And so it's reliant on the honey mushroom mycelia in order to grow. Because Gastrodia tubers lack rootlets normally absorbing nutrients from the soil, they rely on the mycelia to get all of their nutrients. And the active medicinal components of Gastrodia mainly are mainly the metabolites of the honey mushroom itself. And so while the orchid has been used for and documented for centuries as a medicinal herb, most of those active benefits that they're getting are actually metabolites of the honey mushroom itself. So, studies that have been done over in China, well over 25 years or so, have taken a look at honey mushroom itself. And there are dozens of published studies that have shown the chemical constituents, pharmacology, and clinical effects of honey mushroom and the culture medium after growing mycelia are indistinguishable from Gastrodia. They cannot find a difference in terms of um, the chemical constituents between honey mushroom and the orchid tuber. And then the new drug group at the Chinese Academy for Medical Science confirmed honey mushroom fermentation liquid achieves the same medicinal effects, is easier to cultivate, and they actually found that it's twice as potent than Gastrodia itself. So twice as strong, and thus twice the medicinal effects as Gastrodia itself, or as this orchid tuber. So I'm a proponent of honey mushroom for this reason. It's a lot easier to cultivate. It's not an endangered species, and it's twice as effective. And there's just hasn't been quite the conversation around honey mushroom. A lot of the reason for that is Gastrodia has been, again, discussed and utilized for centuries, whereas the research around mushroom is relatively newer, but have had fantastic benefits from utilizing this both in herbal formulas as well as on its own, just as an extract or a tincture. Uh, this is the first of three formulations that we're going to bring into the conversations here of how I've tied some of this information into my clinical practice. Um, Honey mushroom, like I said, it can be tied into an herbal formula that can be very helpful for things like dysautonomia, vestibular disorders, and things like that. And this is an example of a formulation that I tend to use that I've put together, um, where a honey mushroom is one of the primary ingredients, and then several other medicinal mushrooms. And this is an example of how these things can be tied into uh, uh, a larger application beyond just a single extract, and just the single benefits that we're talking about here is that these things can be directly tied into traditional herbal Chinese medical formulas. And I've used this in a number of ways, and we'll have a larger discussion around some of that in my next talk when we're talking about supporting psychedelic journeys and supporting neuroplasticity and microdosing with medicinal mushrooms. But the example here with honey mushroom and how I've integrated that in is that using honey mushroom as a primary, complementing it with a number of other medicinal mushrooms, lion's mane, reishi, shiitake, turkey tail, all kind of work together to support the autonomic nervous system on varying levels. And as we talk about the other mushrooms, we'll see why. And then building that into an established Chinese herbal formula that's been utilized and can be utilized in dysautonomia and dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. So I'll use this formulation for autonomic nervous system support, immune support, general anti-inflammatory effects, analgesic effects, so pain reduction, and protecting the liver and the pancreas.